Chapter 5, Section 5 is about the third and last form of linear equations, and this one is called standard form. There's two parts to this one also. By the end, you should be able to write and graph linear relationships using all three: standard form, slope-intercept form, and point-slope form, and you should be able to change linear equations from one form to another. Okay, starting with vocab, we have the x-intercept, which is the point where the line crosses the x-axis. Okay, that ordered pair is always going to be some number and then 0, because we're going over somewhere on the x-axis, but we're not moving up and down on the y-axis, so that's where we get the 0. The y-intercept is the point where the line crosses the y-axis, and that one's always going to be 0 and then a number, because we're not moving left to right, but we are moving up or down on that y-axis. All right, our standard form looks like this. ax plus by equals c. A, b, and c all have to be real numbers, and a and b are both not 0. Okay, this one is going to come in handy if we're looking for intercepts, this form. Okay, so if I am looking for, using this equation, 3x plus 4y equals 24, and I'm looking for the x-intercept, remember that if I have my x-intercept is always going to be an ordered pair that looks like this: some number and then 0, right? Because we are moving on the x-axis, but we're not moving on the y-axis. So that means my y will always be 0. Okay, so that means I should be able to plug a 0 in right here for my y. 3x plus 4 times 0 equals 24. Okay, then anything times 0 disappears, so I'm left with 3x equals 24. And then to get x by itself, I divide by 3. And I find out that my x-intercept is 8, or the point 8, 0. Okay, my y-intercept, if we remember from the last slide, would look like the ordered pair 0 and then some number, because we're not moving left to right, but we are moving up and down on that y-axis. And so my x is always going to be 0. So this time I'm going to plug in 0 for this x. So I'll have 3 times 0 plus 4 times y equals 24. 3 times 0 is 0, so I'm left with 4y equals 24. Divide by 4 to get the y alone. And I find out that my y is equal to 6, or the ordered pair 0, 6. All right, so really the easiest way to do this, since I know that to find my x-intercept, that means that my y is going to be equal to 0. So I'm really just going to get rid of this for right now, because anything times 0 is 0. So 5x equals 60. And then I divide by 5, and I find out that my x-intercept is 12, or the ordered pair 12, 0. Okay, then if I'm looking for my y-intercept, that means that my x's are going to equal 0, so I'm going to cross this off. And that will leave me with negative 6y equals 60, divided by negative 6. Y is equal to negative 10, or the ordered pair 0, negative 10. Those are my two intercepts for this function at the top. Okay, this would be a good place for you to pause and see if you can find the x and y intercept for this problem on the right. And then come back and check to make sure that you have the same answers that I do. All right, welcome back. I hope you did stop and check. You should have gotten that y is equal to 1.5, or the ordered pair 0, 1.5, and that the x-intercept is at 4, which is the ordered pair 4, 0. All right, now they're going to give you an equation in standard form, and they're going to ask you to graph it. Okay, the way that it looks right now, I can't just grab something out of there and graph it. But once I find those two intercepts, all I have to do is plot those 2 points and connect them with a straight line and arrows. So I'm going to look for my x-intercept. if I'm looking for the x, that means I'm going to get rid of the y. And already I know that x is equal to -2, or the ordered pair -2, 0. So I'm going to go back to up 0, put a dot. If I'm looking for my y-intercept, that means I'm going to get rid of my x, and I have -2y equals -2, so I divide by -2 and find out that y is equal to 1, which is really the ordered pair 0, 1. So I'm going to go over 0, up 1, right there. Then I'm going to connect my points and put arrows. Okay. Give it a shot with this one. See if you can figure out what your your two intercepts, your x and your y intercepts are, and then give it and graph it, and then come back and see if yours looks like mine. Okay, I'm hoping that you got the x-intercept as 10, 0 and your y-intercept as 0, 4. So you'd have to go over 10, up 0. I'm going to count by 2s, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And then your y-intercept is over 0, up 4, still counting by 2s. And then you draw your line with your arrows. If you have standard form, this is the easiest way to graph. You just find your two intercepts, connect the dots. Okay, now what happens if I'm using this standard form equation and my a or my b are 0? Okay. If my a were 0, okay, so I would have 0x plus some number y equals c. Okay, that means this is actually just gone. So what is it going to look like if my y is equal to some number? Well, if my y equals a number, but I don't have an x value, that's going to be a horizontal line. Okay, I like to use this Hoy-Bucks just to help you remember, even though it's weird. So H stands for horizontal. This is actually a 0. And this is for y equals. Okay, so if you get a y equals, it's going to be a horizontal line. And your slope is going to be 0. Okay. Now, if your, we'll go back. If your x ended up, so if your a's were 0, your b's were 0, and you're left with just an x equals some number, right here, x equals some number, that's going to be a vertical line. Okay. Bucks stands for vertical with an undefined slope, which is always going to be your x equals. Okay, so if you just have x equals, because there is no y, you're going to get a vertical line which has an undefined slope. If you only have a y equals, because your x was 0, you're going to get a horizontal line, which is a 0 slope, and your equation will start with y equals. All right, so last thing is we're just going to practice those. So if you get a graph of x equals -2, you're going to go on the x-axis to -2, and you're going to draw yourself, because it's x equals, you're going to draw yourself a vertical line. So that's what the graph of x equals -2 looks like. Now, if you don't have x's but you have y's, you have y equals 4. On the y-axis, you're going to go up to 4, and you're going to draw yourself a horizontal line. That's what the graph of y equals 4 looks like. If you happen to get an x equals 0, means we're not going anywhere on the x-axis, and that we would draw our vertical line because it's an x equals. So x equals 0 is actually the y-axis, meaning that y equals 0 is actually the x-axis. All right, I think that's enough for one day. Your assignment is on page 324. It might be a little bit different depending on which class you're in, but our assignment was going to be 8 through 30 all. And the lesson quiz is number 1.